Okay, so I just got the information. We have quite a nice number of attendees today. So welcome everyone. For those who are connecting from Europe, good morning. For those like myself, we're based in Singapore, good afternoon. And the weekend is upon us soon. So hopefully we have a great chat and you get to learn a lot of new things today. So I'm Joao, I'm a board member of PBS. PBS stands for Portuguese Business Society, and we are a non-profit organization focused on promoting and developing businesses, relationships between Portugal and Singapore, and vice versa. We are proud to be partnering today with the Sociedade Portuguesa de Inovação, SPI, and bring to you an exciting topic, which is intellectual property. This webinar is also in collaboration with two European-funded projects, CubeIn and Southeast Asia IP Help Desk. They aim to internationalize European small and medium companies. So PBS is very proud to host this session and help our attendees learn more about this super interesting topic of how to take upper hands in protecting your research and development. A few housekeeping rules for today. So before I give a brief introduction of our amazing speakers, we will host the 4 speakers sequenced, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end, okay? But at any time, please interact with us, use the chat. We also have a team in the back office that can help you if you have any questions. So please use the chat and share your thoughts and interact with us. Who do we have with us today? An exciting group of specialists. First, we'll have Dr. Sara Medina, member of the SPI board, followed by Elio de Tullio, the managing partner of de Tullio Partners, James Ong Ye, associate partner of Ofsted Insight, and finally, Tiago Alves, the vice president of Asia Pacific Aptoid. Apologies, my dear speakers, if I mispronounced some of your names. It is a fair attempt in this very nice international panel of speakers we have. Without further ado, I will pass it on to our first speaker, Dr. Sara Medina.
Many thanks, João, for your very kind introduction. So it's really a great pleasure for SPI to cooperate with the PBS in Singapore in organizing this webinar. So many thanks for everything to João, to Bruno, to Rui, to Joana, and to Nadia. I'd like also to present you my colleague Ajaya from Nepal. Ajaya is based in Portugal, and he has been also instrumental in putting together everything for this webinar. And I'd like also to greet our partners from CubeIn and from IPR SME Help Desk, and to thank for all the cooperation in also putting together this webinar, and also to Tiago from Aptoid. So Tiago Alves from Aptoid, and Jaime and Elio. Many, many thanks for all the cooperation. So I'll start sharing my screen to go into the presentation. So many thanks to all the participants that are listening us directly from Europe and from Asia, from different countries across Southeast Asia. So I'll be talking about the importance of internationalization in Southeast Asia. So this presentation has basically 2 parts. First, I'll give an overview of the Southeast Asia market. And then I'll tell a little bit about SPI's presence in Southeast Asia, actually how it started. That actually started with in 2012, when I went for the first time to Southeast Asia in a project that we had called the CNET. It was a project funded by the European Commission, still under FP7, on cooperation between Europe and Southeast Asia. That allowed me to start being familiar with different countries, after working already with China market since 2003. So first, an overview of the Southeast Asia market. So Southeast Asia is a very diverse market, has more than 600 million people, representing about 9% of the global population. There are 11 member states across Southeast Asia, from Brunei, Cambodia, East Timor, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Myanmar, and Laos. So it's quite diverse in terms also of the culture. I would say Singapore is very different than East Timor or even Cambodia, Brunei. So you can really see the differences across the different countries, and you need to go there to have physical contact with the different cultures in order to be able to start doing business and doing research with in these countries. So in dealing with China and also in dealing with Southeast Asian countries, the face-to-face contact is very, very important. So it's quite recommended that you go to the country and you have really physical contact. It's an emerging consumer market with 67 million households, and it's expected to double by 2025. And the total GDP from Southeast Asia is also expected to be around 3 trillion euros as of now. In terms of regional economic integration is also on the horizon. So here you can see in this map where the different countries are located. So you see Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Singapore, Indonesia. The distance between the countries is not too much. For instance, to go from Singapore to Indonesia takes about 1 hour by plane. Singapore to Vietnam about 1 hour and a half, 1 hour 45 minutes. So it's quite easy to travel. I would say Singapore is like the hub. Singapore has a fantastic airport. For me, it's the best airport in the world. And from there, using Singapore as a hub, you can basically travel from there anywhere in Southeast Asia. And it's quite also relatively cheap to get also tickets. So now an overview of the different countries. So starting by Thailand with a population of 69 million, then the average life expectancy is about 77 years. There are two languages, English and Thai. The climate is of course hot. That's hot everywhere in Southeast Asia. The GDP per capita, $7,800 US, a GDP growth of 2.4%, unemployment 1.4%. In terms of the business sectors that are more important are consumer goods and services, infrastructure development, manufacturing with food and automotive, and tourism. Going into Philippines, population 108 million, life expectancy 72 years, English and Filipino. So everyone in Philippines speaks very good English. They also have a Spanish descendancy, so you can also find Filipinos that speak Spanish, but English, everyone speaks English very, very well. So it's very easy to circulate in Philippines. It's also relatively safe. The climate is of course tropical. The GDP per capita about $3,400 US, GDP growth 6%, unemployment also quite low, 2%, and business sectors that are more interesting, infrastructure construction and development, consumer goods and services. In terms of Malaysia, it's very close to Singapore. 32 million people, average life expectancy 76 years. The language is Malay, Mandarin, and Tamil. The climate is also warm. GDP per capita 11,000 US dollars, GDP growth 4%, unemployment 3%, and business sectors, the area of education, urban infrastructure, healthcare and wellness, retail, and also food services. So it's quite a very interesting country as well to do business. Vietnam, in terms of the languages, so they have the French descendancy, so a lot of people there still speak French. English is more difficult to find Vietnamese that have a good domain of English in both cities, the major cities, Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. Ho Chi Minh is like the business city, so even startups, the ecosystem of business associations is also more based in Ho Chi Minh, and the governmental organizations are more based in Hanoi. The GDP per capita $2,700, also unemployment very low, and business sectors, consumer goods and services, manufacturing, and also food and agribusiness. A lot of the manufacturing facilities now, they are also based in Vietnam because the costs are quite low. Going into Indonesia, population 270 million. Also the languages, you have many languages because you have many islands across Indonesia. The GDP per capita around $4,000, GDP growth 5%, and unemployment 5%, and business sectors, the energy, the ports, also the logistics and the tourism infrastructure. In terms of Indonesia, there are different government incentives, and that also varies across the different cities and the different islands. But you can get interesting government incentives, and there are also special economic zones, and the area of education and development of R&D is also developing quite quick. I'm also part of the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce, and so if you need then more information about Indonesia and how to expand to Indonesia, we can also support you. There are different entry modes, from a joint venture to mergers and acquisitions, a private company, branch office, and also a representative office. Singapore, population 6 million, so it's very low compared with other countries across Southeast Asia. The life expectancy about 80 years. Different languages because they have descendants from China and also from Malaysia. GDP growth 0.7%, unemployment 4%, and business sectors, the consumer goods and services, the infrastructure development, the tourism, and all the area of trade. So Singapore is really a unique place, like a hub that can open doors to different countries across Southeast Asia. So I spent some time in Singapore in 2013, and I'm also going there regularly. And SPI, we also even had an office in Singapore for a number of years, and it's quite easy to set up a business in Singapore. There are different government incentives from in the terms of financial services, shipping and maritime industry, tourism industry, and also research and development. Different entry modes, and to create a representative office is also quite straightforward. It's a small market, but with very easy doing business there, and strong rule of law and low crime rates, and almost really no corruption in Singapore. So it's very safe from the point of view of the business to start your business and your activity in Singapore. And I think Tiago will speak about this because Tiago is also tackling the ASEAN market, and it's based in Singapore. In terms of advantages for all of you to reach the Southeast Asian markets. So it's a robust market with more than 600 million people, 9% of the world's total population. There is the rise of Indonesia and Philippines. The HSBC Bank has predicted that the Philippines and Indonesia will be the 16 and 17 largest economies in the world by 2050. Also, the next factory of the world with a growing labor force, the world's youngest and fastest growing labor force. It's also very nice to have colleagues, and for instance in SPI we have colleagues from across different Southeast Asian countries, and they are very reliable people, very trusty, very hard workers. They learn very quick, so they are excellent professionals. So I think it's also very good to have in your companies representatives from Southeast Asia. Here in this map, you can see really the how easy it is to do business across different countries, and you can see that Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand are the easiest ones. Myanmar and Laos are probably the most difficult ones. I have been in Laos one time. Laos is still quite unadvanced. Even the capital, Vientiane, there is really nothing there. Even to find a bottle of water in the capital was quite difficult, because everything is really still very underdeveloped. In terms of a few internationalization tips, so it's important that you choose the market that you want to go. Southeast Asia is quite diverse, so it's important that you try to decide, I want first to go to Indonesia or to Philippines or to Malaysia. Then you conduct a market analysis depending on the sector that you are interested, and you get some support also locally. You need to travel to the country, because you need to really meet face-to-face your potential partners. And to find the right partner is really crucial for you to develop any type of business in Southeast Asia. You have to evaluate your market position. You have to consider what are your objectives, your targets. You have to analyze the supply chain and also to value the different chain options. You really have to make your research before trying to go into the region. And you can find the support from different organizations like PBS and like the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce, among others. Now, a few words about SPI. So we are a consulting company with a focus on science and technology and innovation. We have 85 full-time people and locations in different parts of the world. Basically, we have three big areas: the area of innovation, science and technology, and the territorial development. In terms of locations, headquarters are in Portugal, where I'm located in Porto, together with Ajaia. We have other offices throughout Portugal, a company in Spain, and we started our internationalization process actually 3 years after the company got started. So in 99, the company started in 96, and in 99, we opened an office in China, at the time in Shanghai, and then we also opened an office in Washington, DC. So we thought that really to have a knowledge about what was at the time USA and what was the Asia market, we needed to have a physical presence there, because we needed to travel there. We needed to learn about the different cultures, and just after we could start doing business. So I would say for Asia, it's very important that you have a physical presence, a physical knowledge. Otherwise, doing things all the time from a distance, that's very hard to work. So we have 85 people, also from different backgrounds and different nationalities, and we are also very active in Brazil and Latin America and Africa, apart from Southeast Asia. Our clients go from startups to SMEs, universities, research institutes, business associations, and also the European Commission, the World Bank, and the other international donors. In terms of how we can support you together with our partners in the Southeast Asian market, we can help conducting any type of feasibility study and market research to evaluate the business potential in a new market, to develop a strategy to enter the new market, and also assist with the legal accounting and secretarial services through partners that we have, and also connecting your business to the right partner with the local government authorities, science and technology agencies, suppliers, distributors, and other types of potential partners. So this shows a little bit the network that we have. So the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce, that was established in 2012, that aims to link the Portuguese companies with institutions in Indonesia. The ASEAN community in Lisbon, Portugal, is an association of Southeast Asian embassies, which is made up of the Embassy of Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines in Lisbon, Portugal, and the PBS, as it was already presented. These are some examples of projects that we are doing right now in cooperation with Southeast Asia. Again, our activities started in 2012. That allowed me to spend some time in the region. And we even created an office in Singapore in 2013. We had an office for 3 years, but then we needed to transform the office in a company. And it was decided that we didn't have enough business directly in Singapore to justify the creation of a company. And we decided to run the operations of Southeast Asia now from Portugal. So we travel regularly to the region. We also have right now two interns working with us from one of the most prestigious universities, NTU, the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. And we keep very much contact and still being very active with the region. So this CUBIN project, we have a representative from CUBIN that will be also speaking in a few minutes. It's a project about cultural understanding for business expansion and innovation, and also tackles the Southeast Asian markets. We have the Southeast Asia IPR SME Help Desk with the LDO that will be presenting what are the major IPR issues that companies and other types of organizations have to take into account reaching the Southeast Asian market. And we are one of the implementing partners of this project funded by the European Commission. Your Access is another project from the European Commission focused on the mobility of researchers. So if researchers from Europe want to move to Southeast Asia and other regions worldwide, we can support and also provide information to researchers in the region about opportunities within the European Commission, mainly from the upcoming now, the current Horizon Europe, that many calls are already open, and the European Research Council and the European Innovation Council, and also other opportunities under Erasmus+. The AXA, it was another initiative that we were involved in coordinating, focused on ICT and cybersecurity. So we had to organize many activities across different Southeast Asian countries with the aim of connecting researchers and other types of organizations between Europe and Southeast Asia, focused more on the ICT. To conclude, these are some pictures of workshops and seminars that we have organized throughout Portugal and also across different countries in Southeast Asia. We have been also cooperating with the Indonesia embassy in Portugal, and we have done a study together with the embassy of Indonesia about how to access the different products in Indonesia that are more attractive to the Portuguese market. One of them is coffee, and we had also conducted a webinar on how to promote the coffee of Indonesia in the Portuguese market. So again, many thanks for all the cooperation, and really a great pleasure to be with all of you. And a special thanks to PBS and to our partners from CUBIN and IPR Help Desk, and also to Aptoid. And I'll be with you until the end to answer any questions. Many thanks again.
Thank you, Sara, for the great presentation. I think now we will have the next speaker, which will be, let me check my cheat notes, Elio. So Elio, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sharing my screen. So first of all, I would like to thank you, PBS and SPI, for this nice invitation on behalf of the Southeast Asia IPR SME Help Desk. And thank you, Sara, for your presentation, impressive activities of SPI. And now we start talking about the protection of intellectual property rights in Southeast Asian countries. Just a preliminary remark, the protection of IPR in Southeast Asia is not an easy issue. It's a complicated issue. Usually it is a case-by-case approach that can help SMEs, but we will try to give some hints to SMEs in order to have a preliminary information on how to mitigate risks of protection in Southeast Asian countries. The services of the IPR SME Help Desk project founded by European Commission is composed by several tools. There is an inquiry helpline, website, blog, e-learning and business tools. There are a lot of trainings and IP guides and fact sheets. You can find all this information on the IPR Hub, so on the website that will be repeated at the end of this presentation. My name is Elio De Tullio. I'm a managing partner of De Tullio & Partners. I have extensive experience in protection of intellectual property rights for SMEs, in particular in China and Southeast Asia. Let's start with the more technical points. First of all, as probably some of you already know, in order to have the best strategy to protect your IP rights in Southeast Asia, I would say at the international level, it is better to have an attorney, let's say a coordinator in the country of origin of protection. So if you are a company based in Southeast Asian countries, this IP attorney should be based there. If you are an EU SME, it is better to have an IP attorney there. And this will be the starting point for protection. For instance, in order to use some privileges like priority rights, we will see what does it mean afterwards, or you have, in order to have a consistent strategy of protection in several different countries worldwide. And of course, in order to coordinate the activity of local attorneys in terms of prosecution at local IP offices or local IP courts. Let's say that in Southeast Asian countries, application can be filed by foreign companies if they have an address for service in the countries. This is the case for Brunei and Singapore, or by appointing a local agent. This is the case in these other countries, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia. I will leave you the time to read the slides because the information are a lot. So I will try to comment only some of them. In most of the Southeast Asian countries, it is necessary to have a power of attorney. In some countries, this power of attorney must be notarized and legalized. In Southeast Asian countries, what is the winning strategy? The winning strategy is to use IP rights in an interdependent way. So you have several products. You need to protect your products with different layers of protection. So you can use on the same product, for instance, a technological product, patents, trademarks, designs, copyrights, and also other IP rights, for instance, trade secrets. So this gives you different options of protection and enforcement of your rights before enforcement agencies like customs, before courts, or even in administrative proceedings before IP offices. Of course, provided that you have carried out the activities, preliminary activities, in order to assess the inherent registrability, protectability of your rights. For instance, preliminary searches of trademarks, patents, designs, in order to assess not only novelty, but also inventive steps, distinctive capacities, and individual character for design. For instance, but this is just an example, in the textile and apparel sector, a single product can be protected through different IP rights, patents for new textile machineries and yarns, designs for textures, copyright for drawings, trade secrets for manufacturing process, trademarks for brands and signs that represent the business identity and origin of the products. You know that you can use the priority rights, so you can start your protection in, even if you are a EU SME, you can start the protection in destination countries from the date of the first filing in European Union or in your country of origin, just using the priority rights of the Paris Convention. Most of the countries of Southeast Asia are member of the Paris Convention, apart from Myanmar. And so in these cases, you can have 6 months of priority for trademarks and designs, and 12 months for patents and utility models, if applicable. What are peculiarities of, for instance, trademarks in Southeast Asia? Let's talk about non-conventional trademarks. You have now the possibility to protect non-conventional trademarks like sounds, tastes, smells, or for instance, some aspects of packaging in Malaysia, but in Vietnam, it is not allowed to protect sounds or smells. And in Laos, this is not the case, so it is now only the possibility to have protection for 3D marks. And you can see that from country to country, you have different approaches to the protection of non-conventional trademarks. But in any case, according to the last development of trademark laws, in Philippines, Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia, so the majority of the countries, you have a multi-class system. So you can file one application claiming for protection in different classes of NICE convention. You can also use ASEAN TMView, that is a tool free of charge that allows you to carry out a preliminary first line trademark search in order to understand if your trademark is new or not. Here you can see the reference link to the searches that can be done according to ASEAN TMView. And this is just a table published on the Southeast Asian IPR SME helpdesk website, where you can see how and to what extent some traditional or non-conventional trademarks can be protected in different Southeast Asian countries. So as you can see, the situation is quite fragmented. Singapore is the country where the majority, well, I would say all type of trademarks can be protected. And I would say that in Myanmar, there are several problems, some of them caused by the non-adhesion to international conventions. And I think that until October 2020, in order to protect your trademark in Myanmar, you should file a declaration of ownership. So there was no register of trademarks. So far, a new law has been approved. So now there is the possibility for protecting your trademark after, let's say, traditional filing. Additional peculiarities of the trademark system. Of course, you have 2 ways of protection. One is the local one, so filing an application in the country of destination. And the other one is the international application according to the Madrid system, that is the International Convention on Protection of Trademarks administered by WIPO. I repeat that Myanmar is not member of the Paris Convention about the priority rights, but is not member also of the Madrid system for trademarks. And of course, Myanmar requires separate trademark application for each class of goods and services, apart from the peculiarities mentioned before. Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam require the local application to be filed in their respective languages. So this is also another peculiarity. And the local language is an issue in Southeast Asian countries, like it is in China, for instance. So it is highly advisable to protect your trademarks, not only in Latin character, let's say Roman character, but also the translation of these names in local languages, because of course, local consumers can, let's say, read and understand only local language, and can mislead the message of conveyed by your trademark. So there is a risk of choice by consumers of naming local language with similar meaning or sound, and there is of course the risk of registration by third parties of bad faith application, so name used in the local market for the product. The duration of the trademark in Southeast Asian countries is 10 years from the filing date in the majority of countries, and 10 years from the registration date in Laos and Philippines. Some new laws have been approved recently in the majority of countries. We have already spoken about the new trademark registration regulation in Myanmar with the grand opening last April 1st. So please stay tuned in order to understand how to protect your trademark in Myanmar. In Malaysia, there is a new Trademark Act 2019. In Laos, some consequences to trademark decision recently adopted. And in Indonesia, the Omnibus law was enacted, and it contains revisions to multiple laws, including patent and trademark laws, and also some updates about counterfeiting. I will not go through everything. Let's say that Vietnam is a country in which you can find some issues in counterfeiting decisions, because there is a general low IP awareness. But let's say that all these countries are improving their IP protection. So the general suggestion is try to be prepared, try to invest some money in protection, but if you do things in the proper way, you will be protected accordingly. For instance, in Malaysia, this new Trademark Act provides accession to the Madrid Protocol, once again, multi-class application, recognition of non-traditional trademarks, and the same about the decision adopted in Laos in 2020. New requirements for power of attorney, specification for service marks and non-traditional marks, and also some updates about renewal and assignment and authorization to use a trademark. Also in copyright protection, you can find some differences in the countries about the duration of the protection of literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works, and also if it is possible, for instance, a voluntary registration available at local copyright offices. And the same is the case for the protection of patent in Southeast Asian countries. This table allows you to understand that, for instance, not all Southeast Asian countries adopt the so-called utility models that are, let's say, small patents with a low inventive step, more easily to obtain it, because in the majority of cases there is no substantial examination by the local patent offices, but of course the duration of small patents or petty patents or utility models is shorter, is 10 years or 7 years depending on the countries. So can be a way to protect some small inventions, for instance, the ergonomic part of utensils or other small connections, or for some more important inventions. Apart from that, you can obtain in all the countries the protection of the normal, let's say, patent. The duration of patents is 20 years in all the countries apart from Myanmar, and these 20 years start from the filing date. Some case studies. First of all, a patent infringement in Singapore. This is a case regarding Company a company active in the energy solutions sector that was engaged by a US company to supply and install solar photovoltaic systems on the rooftop of a building. the company B, a solar energy retailer, started a legal action against company A before the Court of Singapore, claiming the infringement of its Singapore patent relating to power grid systems. And at this point, company A filed a counterclaim requiring the revocation of the patent, denying the patent infringement. Moreover, company A affirmed that company B had threatened its clients of starting patent infringement proceedings, causing loss of contracts and damages to company A reputation. The lawsuit is still pending before the Court of Singapore, and this is important because allow you to understand how crucial is to carry out preliminary searches. In some patent cases, they are called freedom to operate searches. So the possibility to search if an invention, the exploitation of an invention is free to use in some specific countries. The other case is regarding confidentiality clauses in Southeast Asia. 4 former employees of company A start to work for company B. There's a typical case for trade secrets infringements. And during that year, some contracts that company A was trying to obtain were awarded to the other company, and company A sued company B and its former employees, claiming inter alia the breach of confidence for disclosure of confidential information. The court affirmed that company A did not specify the nature of the confidential information used by the defendants and dismissed the case. In particular, information on the cost of the components of the water purification plant were not being protected with a sufficiently high level of confidentiality. So there were no technological, legal, and physical measure to protect these trade secrets, and therefore the former employees were not obligated to not use or disclose them. So such case shows the relevance of identify, protect, and secure confidential information in order to avoid the illicit use of or the unlawful disclosure of the same. So first, you need to secure your trade secrets in your company. You need to be sure that all measures in order to make them protected have been implemented, and then you can start a legal action before the court. One of the documents that can help you to secure your trade secrets, trademarks, IPRs in Southeast Asia can be an NNN agreement, so non-disclosure, non-use, non-circumvention. So also obligation for the local partner to not to use, but also not circumvent the agreement and not to interfere with the right holders' rights. And of course, in order to be sure that these agreements are enforceable before local courts, the governing law should be the national law, and of course there must be some tips in order to make them enforceable before courts and help you to have your IP rights effectively protected. Final key recommendation. So start protecting your IPR before entering the market, prepare a strategy to develop your IPR protection, carry out preliminary searches, and take care of your first filing that allows you to use priority rights, protect the local transliteration of your trademarks, collect all the documents and preserve them in an archive, monitor markets and competitors' behaviors, activate a worldwide surveillance system in order to monitor your competitors' approach, and verify the compliance of contracts providing the local legislation as applicable law, because you must know in advance the consequences of infringements. Thank you very much. You can find a lot of additional information on IPR SME website, of course related to Southeast Asia. You can use the inquiry helpline with answer in 3 working days. Of course, everything is confidential, and follow us on social network. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elio, for a very interesting presentation. I encourage our attendees to please share questions, and we'll address them at the end. And now we'll move on to Jamie, who has an amazing content as well for us.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Just want to check if you can see my presentation as well.
Everything is perfect, Jim.
Great. So my name is Jamie. I'm with Hofstede Insights, which is a boutique consultancy that focuses on culture, whether it is national cultures across different countries or organizational culture within companies. And today I will be touching on some cultural aspects of doing business in Southeast Asia. So firstly, I would like to thank Sarah and Elio for giving such a good overview on Southeast Asia, as this sets up my presentation really nicely. So reflecting on what Sarah and Elio have said, I'd like to ask you a question. How would you describe Southeast Asia in one word? And you can put your answers into the chat box. Opportunity, vibrant, unique, innovative, diverse. Great. So the first word that I would use to describe Southeast Asia living here is hot. And the second word is humid. As Sarah mentioned, the climate in Southeast Asia is mainly tropical, hot and humid all year round with plenty of rain. Only the northern parts are a bit subtropical and have a cooler winter. But on a more serious note, I would describe Southeast Asia as being very diverse, like what Sarah said. So to give you some context on why the region is so diverse, there are 13 official languages here across 11, 12 countries. It doesn't seem like a lot. For example, Europe has 12 most common first languages, but these 13 languages are only the official languages designated by the countries. There are also around 70 other languages or dialects spoken across Southeast Asia. As Elio mentioned, only a few languages use the Roman alphabet. Many of our languages also have their own script. Now, there are three dominant religions in Southeast Asia: Islam, Buddhism, and Christianity. But quite a few other religions are practiced as well. So again, in comparison to Europe, where there is mainly one dominant religion. Now, there have been many influences throughout history. From the early hundreds to about the 15th century, the region was ruled by ancient Hindu and Buddhist kingdoms. Then the influence of Islam in the region started around the 11th century. And by the 15th century, a Malay Muslim sultanate emerged, and that accelerated the influence of Islam in the region. There's also long been a Chinese influence in the early centuries. Parts of northern Vietnam was under Chinese rule. There was intermarriage between the Chinese kingdoms and the local kingdoms, exploration and trade, of course, as well as mass migration of labor from southern China for agriculture and tin mining. There is something like 50 million overseas Chinese globally, and about 30 million of them are in Southeast Asia. In addition to the Hindu and Buddhist kingdoms that I spoke about earlier, there is also a strong Indian influence from trade, also as well as mass migration of labor during the colonial period. Now, Southeast Asia has also been colonized by French, in French Indochina, the Dutch from the Dutch East Indies, the Portuguese, Spain and Britain, also Imperial Japan, as well as America, with the exception of Thailand, that is the only country that has never been colonized. So with all these different religions, languages, ethnicities, and influences, I think that explains a little about what makes Southeast Asia so diverse, so multicultural. Now, comparing Southeast Asia with Europe in terms of population and socioeconomic factors, Sarah touched on it a bit before this. We have less people than Europe, but we do have the fourth most populous country in the world after China, India, and USA, and that is Indonesia. Population density here is quite high, almost double that of Europe. For example, in Greater Kuala Lumpur, the metropolitan region that I live in, it has a population of 7 to 8 million, which is almost 2 million more than the whole of Denmark, although it is 6 times smaller in physical size. The GDP per capita is much lower than that of Europe. In terms of trade, ASEAN is actually the EU's third largest trading partner outside of Europe after the US and China. And China is ASEAN's largest trading partner, and ASEAN, reciprocally, ASEAN is China's largest trading partner, ahead of the EU and the US. So how do we talk about and understand culture in such a diverse environment? So we use what we call the 6 dimensions of national culture that allow us to describe culture and compare it with other cultures in an objective manner. Now, we don't have time to go over all of the dimensions today, but I'd like to discuss the first 3 dimensions because I think that is where the countries in Southeast Asia share the most commonality, as well as you will find, I think, the most differences compared with Europe. So they are individualism, power distance, and uncertainty avoidance. Now, the first dimension, power distance, is about equality or inequality of status, wealth, and power. So in cultures with low power distance, inequality is not desirable. Everyone should be equal, right? Now, in cultures with high power distance, inequality is seen as normal and sometimes even desirable. People in positions of power have power over those who do not, and there are different rules for different people. So I won't cover all the 11 countries in Southeast Asia, but the representative countries that I show here shows that Southeast Asia leans towards high power distance. So remember what we saw earlier about the GDP per capita being quite low compared to Europe? So a large power distance means that there is a lot of socio-economic disparity. There is a large lower income group, but there is also an expanding middle class, as well as newer generations of almost rich, as well as the very, very wealthy, right? So this means that there is a very wide range of market segments for you to target your products and your marketing and advertising strategy at. So we have a very big range from single-use, single-portion sachets of soap and shampoo in Indonesia, because people simply cannot afford to buy the whole bottle, to high demand for luxury goods by the very wealthy in Vietnam. Now, this imbalance of power and socioeconomic status also means that Southeast Asia is quite dependent on low-wage workers in production and manufacturing, construction, and what we call 3D jobs, which are dangerous, dirty, and difficult jobs. So these workers are migrants from either poorer villages in the countryside, from other Southeast Asian countries, from South Asia like Bangladesh or India or China. And there are about 10 million low-wage migrant workers in the region. So why I bring this up is if you or your local partner needs to set up a labor-intensive operation here, you will need to consider things like using a staffing agency, visas, worker housing, healthcare, and so on, because the blue-collar workforce may not be local. So remember that you will need to allocate time, effort, and budget for all that. Right? In terms of business practices or behaviors, be aware that in your dealings or negotiations, in a high power distance culture, you need to be aware of and respect hierarchy and position. So if people have honorary titles and are introduced with their titles, please use them unless they tell you not to. So refer to people in the same way that they are introduced to you, or look up the local equivalent of how to say Mr. and Ms. And also be aware of the status that you and your organization projects as well. For example, try to match the hierarchy in meetings. Don't send a sales manager to meet the CEO. Now, also in high power distance cultures, decisions tend to be made at the top. So this means that the decision-making process can be very slow, because the lower levels will defer to the higher ups to make decisions, and this escalation process up and down takes time. So again, plan for this additional time and additional follow-up meetings, and don't expect to come to any conclusions at the end of your first meeting. Now, on the flip side, decision-making can also be very fast if you happen to be engaging directly with the power holder or the business owner. Decisions can be subject to sudden change based on the power holder's whim, and it can also be based on who is on top. For example, if there is a change in management or a change in government, then the decision can change very quickly as well. Now, moving on to the next dimension. The next dimension is called individualism. So countries with low individualism are called collectivist. In collectivist cultures, people see themselves as part of a group, a community, a family, and people are interdependent on each other. So being part of a group and the interest of the group is more important than the interest of single individuals. On the other side, in individualistic countries, individual opinions and the interest of the individual is more important. Now, the cultures in Southeast Asia are highly collectivist. So relationships and maintaining those relationships are very important in collectivist countries. People avoid being too direct, and they prefer to express negative messages using indirect speech. You will seldom hear someone say no to you outright when they don't want to or cannot do something. They will probably say something like, "Oh, that's very difficult," or say something, vague. And things like having an intellectual disagreement can be interpreted as rudeness or disloyalty instead of being stimulating. Open conflict or public criticism is very frowned upon, just as arguing loudly or banging on a table to make a point is considered too emotional and, crossing the line. So, in addition to moderating your own words and emotions when you are in meetings, you will need to read the room, people's expressions and body language, and remember that what is not said is sometimes more important than what is said. So remember, it is always important to preserve good relationships so that someone does not lose face, which means looking bad or being embarrassed or losing status in front of people. Now, because of this, doing business in Southeast Asia is not just transactional, it is relational. So business is not just an exchange of money for goods and services under the right conditions. It is seen as a partnership, a relationship, and it can be heavily influenced by whether the other party likes you for whatever reason and trusts you. So it's normal and even expected that they will want to meet with you face to face, have site visits, go out for dinner, drinks, golf, get to know you. Now, of course, building this relationship takes time and effort. So remember to plan additional time and budget for this as well. This would happen more if you are an SME dealing with another local SME, because smaller companies would be less governed by the more formal and impersonal RFP process that big multinationals use. So with this, try to use strategies that leverage on relationships and networks. So remember that business is a reciprocal relationship. In negotiations, it's better to aim for a win-win outcome where both parties either benefit or both parties concede to something, instead of one party winning and the other party losing. Being introduced or referred in by someone known to the other party is very helpful in opening doors, because the trust will be implied by association. The use of an intermediary, such as a local agent, a local consultancy, a local partner, is common business practice. Also because they will have the network and relationships that you may never achieve by yourself as a so-called outsider. Now, when it comes to sales and marketing, things that are community-based, such as direct selling, personal referrals, personal testimonials, and local influencers instead of global celebrities, can be quite effective, especially for the mid to lower income bracket. Now, the third dimension is called uncertainty avoidance. And it is about how a culture deals with uncertainty, ambiguity, or the unknown. So a low uncertainty avoidance culture is fine with uncertainty and leaving things to chance. Whereas a high uncertainty culture, uncertainty avoidance culture, has an emotional need for structure and finds ways to minimize uncertainty by putting in place things like rules, processes, and technology. As you might have guessed, the cultures in Southeast Asia tend to have lower uncertainty avoidance, with the exception of Thailand, which is a little higher, but still not that high. Now, with low uncertainty avoidance, outcomes are often unpredictable. So deadlines and timelines can be fluid. Things like agreements, contracts, project plans might be open to change or renegotiation later down the road if the situation or the business environment changes. Now, when it comes to processes and procedures, you might be faced with a few scenarios. Number one is processes simply do not exist. Second scenario is processes do exist, but they may not be followed consistently and may not produce the same outcome every time. It can depend on the day, the situation, and the people involved. The third scenario is processes do exist and are followed strictly, but the people have no idea of the reasons behind these processes and are unable to make exceptions or deviations, no matter how logical it may seem. And just because the process is strictly adhered to, again, it does not mean the outcome will be consistent. So again, I would suggest that you put in place contingencies and plan for the unexpected to happen. For example, you could have more than one supplier in your ecosystem. You could allocate additional time and budget as a buffer in your planning, so you have some breathing space. The attitude in a low uncertainty avoidance culture towards precision and punctuality is quite relaxed. And if you have KPIs that are very important to your business, for example, certain quality levels, make it specific and inspect it regularly so that it is not left open to interpretation. Now, the upside to a low uncertainty avoidance culture is that there is not much of a need for advanced planning or to figure out all the details and get everything to work perfectly the first time. So things are very agile. Initiatives and projects can be launched very fast. and people will figure out the details later and adapt or adjust as they go along. Okay, so those are the 3 dimensions, that we have time to cover today. Again, I think it is where the countries in Southeast Asia share the most commonality, as well as where you will find the most differences compared with Europe. If you would like to know more about the other 3 cultural dimensions or the specific positions for your countries, if it was on the slides today, I'll give you some resources in the next slide. So in closing, I would like to say, firstly, set your expectations. The culture is going to be different from what you are used to. People will behave differently and things will work differently. But if you make yourself aware of this ahead of time, you will hopefully be less surprised or frustrated by it. You'll be able to cope better and even leverage these cultural differences and diversity to your advantage. Or you may find that the culture is not entirely different after all, and that you share some similarities. As you might have noticed in some of the dimensions that we saw, some countries in Southeast Asia share similar positions to some countries in Europe. Also, you might be dealing with people whose individual behavior might be different in some areas from their national culture. So remember that personality is not the same as the culture of a group. And with the younger generation of business owners and managers, they may very well have spent many years of their lives studying in and living, working in other countries before returning home. Now, I've listed some resources for you to learn more. We have our Cuban platform where there are country as well as region-specific articles, webinar recordings and quizzes, and we are always adding on more information. There is a useful tool on the Hofstede Insights website where you can choose countries to compare and see where they lie on each of the dimensions, and that comes with an explanation. And you can also get a detailed personalized report that we call the Culture Compass. This allows you to compare your own cultural value preferences as an individual to countries of your choice, and it contains explanations of behaviors that you're likely to encounter. So that concludes my section on some cultural considerations when doing business in Southeast Asia. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll pick them up during the Q&A section at the end. With that, I would like to hand you over to our next speaker, Tiago from Aptoid, to speak about his first-hand experience in Southeast Asia. I'll just stop sharing now so you can take over, Tiago. Yep.
Thank you, Jaime, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation. I believe, João, you're going to be the one sharing the slides? Yeah.
We are sharing on the background, Tiago, and let me echo. Over to you.
Okay. So thank you for inviting me. So we are a company from Portugal. We've expanded to Asia about 6 years ago. So I'll speak a little bit about our experience expanding here to the region. And don't hesitate to follow up with me with any questions. Always happy to help with other Western companies trying to expand to Asia. So next slide, please. Just briefly what we do. We are an Android app store. So if any of you attending today have an Android phone, it comes preloaded with Google Play. That's where you get your apps to your phone. We just offer an alternative to Google Play. We've been doing this for 10 years. Our user base on a monthly basis is about 150 million users downloading apps from our platform. And in terms of traffic, that sums about 1 billion downloads every month. And we have app stores for the Android TVs, Android phones, and recently together with a French company, we started to do Android App Store for the auto industry, for the car entertainment system. Next slide, please. So we are a Portuguese company. That's where we started 10 years ago. And then about 6 years ago, 2015, we decided to expand to Asia, first Singapore and then Shenzhen. Why did we want to come to Asia? Well, we just wanted to be closer to where our users are. And we saw this trend of a lot of these emerging markets with people getting their first mobile phone. And sometimes they have problems to actually create a Google account or start using Google Play. And we start seeing a lot of users in Indonesia and India becoming Aptoide users. So we thought, okay, let's go closer to those countries. And the interesting thing is that when we moved here to Asia 6 years ago, we didn't have a single Asia country on the top 10 list. And now, as you can see on the left, India is already our #1 market, and Indonesia is our #3 market. So I think the lesson learned here is if you really want to be successful on the B2C market on these countries, then you need to be closer to these countries, because how are you going to make sure that you have all the local popular apps, local language, and so on. So in our case, for the B2C, it was really useful to expand to Asia. Next slide. On the B2B side, so I just showed on the previous slide that we opened office in Singapore and Shenzhen about 6 years ago, while the Singapore office was more to address the Southeast Asia region. And I think the other panelists already explained why Singapore. It's a really stable country. And like Sarah was saying, in terms of safety, not only personal, but also corporate safety, it's good to know that the government will not change suddenly. Like you all know what's happening in Myanmar. I don't think there's a high probability of this happening in Singapore, something similar. I do remember still when Uber was around in Southeast Asia, they were always having problems in Indonesia because sometimes the government would say Uber was illegal, and then after a few weeks, Uber was legal again, and that's what Singapore gives you. So that's why we opened to Singapore, to address the B2C market in Southeast Asia, like the starting point to then address the region. For the B2B, which is more about this slide, we had to go to Shenzhen. So it was very interesting that Jaime was saying that the face-to-face meetings, right? And I totally agree with her. On my experience, these last 6 years in Asia, is not enough to be in the same time zone. You need to be close to these companies. So you see on the slide, Huawei, Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo. We are only able to close partnerships with these guys once we open the office in Shenzhen, and then start having a meeting every month with them. And then maybe after 5 to 10 meetings face to face, we finally were able to collaborate with them. And again, the impact was amazing. What you see there in the graph is how many monthly active users we had in our platform on the B2B side 2 years ago. And then we went from 29 million to 81 million, and then 141 million. And this is all thanks to these B2B partnerships. For the B2B, I'd like to say that in terms of the intellectual property, we did do, like Ellie was saying, we did protect ourselves in terms of a trademark, right? For the Aptoide brand here in Singapore, to protect ourselves as a brand. On the technical side, or more the product side, because we are a tech company, maybe we may be a different case study from all the people that are attending this webinar. But what we do is we show to these partners that we know what we're doing. We will expose some interfaces to them. So it's called API. So we tell Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo, and Huawei, hey, if you want to use some of our apps, here's the interface, the API, that you can use to pull these apps to your own app store. But that's it. that's where we stop the sharing. Everything inside our platform is proprietary. We don't share with our partners, and that's how we've been protecting our IP in the B2B side. The next slide, please. Finally, my last slide I wanted to share with you is that I've shown to you the impact of the B2C of expanding here to Asia, right? How India and Indonesia are already our top 5 countries in terms of users, when 6 years ago, they're not even the top 10. I've shared to you the growth on the B2B side, how we went from 30 million users to 140 million users, from opening the office in Shenzhen and being closer to these smartphone brands. But even on the investment side, Asia has been good for us. So what you see here on the screen was one funding round that we did back in 2016. And both these investors, Gobi Partners and Golden Gate Ventures, are Asian investors. So Gobi Partners is a Shanghai-based investment company, and Golden Gate Ventures is a Singapore-based investor. And even on that side, in terms of investment, Asia expansion has been really good for Aptoide. And these guys, they not only bring money, but they also help to open doors to some of the B2B business and give us some tips on how to be more successful on the B2C side. So on these 3 things, right? B2C, B2B investment, the expansion to Asia was really important. And my final comment is that what I always say to companies from Portugal or other countries, you are interested in the Asia markets, you need to come here. Maybe you need to start coming by attending some events, by doing some trips. And then if you're really serious about expanding the region, you must set up shop in the region. Because what example I say is, I used to work for Portugal Telecom, so like a big telecom company from Portugal, and I would never do business with a small startup from Singapore that would come for a meeting in Lisbon and then say, goodbye, I'm going back to Singapore, right? I would only do business with them if they are close to me in my time zone. And that's it from my sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tiago. I think the perfect close to an amazing panel of speakers that we have here today. So please share your questions now while we can still grab these amazing speakers and get their expertise on the different topics covered today. From PBS, thank you to all of you for the great presentations today. It was a pleasure to host you here. So while we're waiting for some of the questions, we do have some questions that we already got previously, and I would then start the discussion through there. So the first question would be for Elio de Tullio. Why is it important to designate a European IP expert in order to protect your IP rights in Southeast Asia countries?
Well, I mentioned this at the very beginning, so I will go now more into details. So the main reason is that, let's say, the protection of intellectual property rights is let's say, a radial protection. So it starts from the country of origin, it goes in the destination countries. This allows to use the priority rights starting from the first filing. That is, priority rights are lasting 6 months for trademarks and designs and 12 months for patents and utility models, and allows you to have a consistent strategy of protection worldwide, avoiding, for instance, conflict of interest for affecting activities of local representatives, trying to be consistent in, for instance, conclusion of coexistence agreements in different countries, or licensing agreements in different countries, and being quite in control for any kind of activities to be carried out at national level in terms of operational activities. So we are talking about prosecution before patent and trademark offices, where EU IP attorneys shall be represented by local colleagues, and representation before courts, before local courts. So it must be, so the let's say, two intermediaries help to reduce risks for SMEs. Because if you have then troubles and you are an SME, probably you will not be able to have enough money to resolve this trouble. So it's better to prevent rather than to react afterwards.
Very, very good answer. And thank you for the additional context. I think in Portugal we have a saying, better sorry than better sad. I'm sorry, I forgot the point, but it's better to prevent rather than to let it happen and then fight against it. Thank you very much, Elio. Question for Jamie. Jamie, from your experience and having many Portuguese in the call, what do you think are the biggest cultural similarities between Singapore and Portugal?
That is a good question. Now, can I just bring up my presentation for a second?
Yeah, we can see the presentation.
So, and the question was on similarities, correct? So, actually, Portugal has some similarities with Southeast Asia. So as you can see from here, Portugal seems to be quite collectivist as well. So correct me if I'm wrong, but relationships are important to you as well.
Yes, I would
building
say so.
Relationships is more important than just merely doing business on a transactional level.
Okay, so I don't know if the audience wants to interact and share a few more thoughts on this while Jamie is explaining to us.
I could add a few things. I think the importance, for instance, given to family, it's something that Portuguese put a lot of value. And I think the Southeast Asians also put a lot of value, the importance of family, the importance of really to care about the others. I think that's one of the similarities between the Southeast Asian culture in general and Portugal.
Yeah, very nice. Also to add on to that, so let's say you have, you set up a company in Southeast Asia, you have employees. It is this importance of family as well that you might find that people need to take time off for family things. Not just their immediate family, but let's say their uncle is ill or they need to go for their cousin's wedding. So I think people tend to take more time off to deal with family matters as well.
Thank you, Sarah and Jamie, for both addressing this question. Another question we have for Tiago this time. Tiago, Aptoide being a global company, could you share some special or considerable challenges that you had while expanding, particularly in Southeast Asia region?
Thank you, João. Just before answering the question, just regarding about the previous question about Singapore similar to Portugal, personally, I think it's a very friendly country to foreigners, right? I think Portugal, we're also very friendly to foreigners coming to live in Portugal and work there, and Singapore has a huge foreign community, and we'll never have such a huge community if they're not really welcoming to foreigners. Regarding the question challenge to Aptoide, I think is more the time zone issue, right? So I had to educate my colleagues back in Portugal that when they start working, they need to reply to any message from any partner in Asia, because if they take too long, right, like more than 1 hour after they start working, then my partners in Asia are already going home. So I think that was the biggest challenge, Ron, to deal with the time zone issues. Yeah.
Amazing. sometimes are the things that you would say quite simple, right? But it actually causes the biggest troubles. Thank you very much, Tiago, for sharing. I don't know if any other of the speakers wants to address the same question. I think it would be interesting, or challenges you've experienced. Yeah.
Maybe I can share my experience as we have right now. So the two interns, actually, they are also with us in this seminar, Sean and NG in Singapore, and we have also our office in China. I think it's important to keep the contact with them so that they don't feel isolated, like they are in a different time zone. They are quite far away geographically. So I think constant meetings with them, regular meetings, the regular interaction with head office and with the colleagues that are in Porto, and not only by emails, but from time to time also conversations using the camera. I think that's important so that they can feel more enclosed, more included within the company, and not feel like we are here, so who are the others that are so far away, so that they can feel really the sense of being integrated within the company. And of course, when the conditions allow, regular travel to the region, that's really crucial.
Amazing. Yeah, it is a moment in the entire world where we have to use the digital way to get connected, right? And connect with our, sometimes even friends, and in my case, my own family. Okay, so then last question for Elio. Is it possible to enforce rights at customs in ASEAN region?
Sorry. Before answering the question, I would like also to add something about the added value of Asian country, and of course related in connection with Portugal. I would say that I had the possibility to have some business with Portuguese, and I was so satisfied about the very professional approach. And I would add that this is an added value for all European member states and European cultures, because we have a cultural diversity that make us and allow us to learn more and more every day. And this is also the case for ASEAN countries. So they have a very rich cultural diversity, but this doesn't mean that they are not welcoming for business opportunities, because this is the case according to my experience. As to the question, I would say that customs enforcement is not easy in Southeast Asian countries. So the preliminary condition is to have a registration system at customs. So in some countries it's very difficult. For instance, Indonesia, that is composed by thousands of islands. It's not easy to have a registration system, and it's not easy to have a customs enforcement, even if they are trying to implement this system. In some other countries, there is no registration system, but it's possible to file a written complaint, like in Singapore. And in some other countries, there is a registration system, like in Vietnam, where it is possible to obtain the enforcement of rights at customs. So everything every opportunity related to the enforcement of IP rights at customs, but also before courts, is related to the correct filing and registration at the very beginning. So if you have a valid title, you will be able to do a lot of things in the proper way. If you preserve your papers, your certifications, you can really act very fast. But if you have to do something when an infringement occurs, so this is a little bit more complicated. So once again, prevent rather than react.
Prevent rather than react. That's a good one-liner to end our session today. From Portuguese Business Society, thank you all the speakers for the great session of today. For all the attendees, if you do have any questions or want to engage with the speakers or the corporations, feel free to connect with them, or if you need assistance to connect with PBS to bridge you. Once again, thank you very much. Obrigado. Hope you have a good day.
Many thanks, João. Many thanks to PBS. Many thanks to all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.